Members, ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to get started again with SGA. It is 15 till 1. Welcome to everybody. I remind everybody to silence your cell phones and please pay attention to the agenda as we see it. Can we call roll, please?
Senator Hewitt.
Present.
Present. Senator Milligan.
Present.
Present. Senator Allen. Here. Present. Senator Foyle. Here. Present. Senator Tarver. Senator Womack. Here. Present. Senator Reese. Here. Present. Senator Harris. And Senator Price. That is 6 and a quorum.
Very good. Thank you. Members, at this moment, we're going to hear Senate Bill 221, I believe, by Senator Chairwoman Hewitt. So if you proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. So Senate Bill 221 is the voting systems bill that I believe will provide a much more open, transparent, fair, and accountable process for procuring voting systems. It's going to do several things, and let me just kind of give you a highlight of the top 3 things or so in general that this bill does. First of all, it's going to establish a commission that will evaluate in a public setting with access to all the election experts that we want to bring in, kind of what are the family of voting systems that we want to consider in this procurement process. Then secondly, it will instruct the Secretary of State to promulgate state standards for voting systems. So there's federal standards that are already in place. Then every state establishes their own state standards. And he would do that through the Administrative Procedure Act that already exists, right? That's already a part of our process. Of course, with that, we will have legislative oversight in that process, in the APA process. There would be public hearings on what those standards are, and so there's an opportunity there for the public. The third step then would be for the Secretary of State to develop the RFP specifications. So I think of this as like a funnel. So you start out at the high level with the commission deciding which type of voting system in general, the family of voting systems do we want to have? Is it DREs? Is it paper and pencil ballots? Or is it anything in between? Then you kind of funnel down to what are the state standards, and those will be developed through the APA process, again, with public hearings, legislative oversight. The third step is actually putting together the RFP with specific specifications in the RFP, working with the Office of State Procurement. Then there will be an evaluation committee, of course, then that evaluates those proposals. This is already part of our standard practice. What this bill does do, though, is it specifies what types of individuals would be part of that evaluation committee. The committee would also publicly test the machines. So that would be, again, a part of the public process. And the highest scoring proposal then would be submitted to the Secretary of State. When you go back up to the standards that I spoke of earlier, the state standards, another part of that would be any vendor that wants to have their machine or their equipment certified to the state standards could request that, and the Secretary of State has to provide for that. And he would do it by selecting election experts that would actually, again, evaluate the machines. These are generally cybersecurity, IT type individuals that are working to try to make the machines fail. They're looking for ways to hack into them. They're testing them. They're running them through all the traps to certify that they meet the state standards. And these would be done, again, by election system experts that would be hired to do that. They would write a report, they would turn that into the Secretary of State, and then he would say, based on the analysis of these individuals, these machines are certified and these are not for these reasons. And so I think, again, there will be multiple opportunities for the public to participate in this process. There's certainly legislative oversight during multiple steps of the process. There's opportunities for us to bring in election experts. And so, again, it's not to say that anybody has an answer in the back of the book. It's really not about that. But it's just making sure that we have a very fair and open and transparent process as we go forward. The statute then that I'm proposing and the law that I'm proposing is more about process and less about the answer, because the idea is for us to have a process that works today as well as 20 years from now when we might be looking at procuring, a new voting system. And so it's not prescriptive in terms of what the answer is. Instead, it establishes the commission that would begin the process in determining, based on the current technology and best practices that are available, what are the systems that we want to invest in. And so in general, that's what the bill does, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to take any questions. I also have, a pretty healthy set of amendments that we can introduce at the proper time. But I'll give members a chance to ask questions if you would like to first. And, we can go through the amendments in more detail so you can see they're in keeping with those general themes, but we've just sharpened our pencil and improved upon it, I think, in a number of areas.
So the weight of this bill is that layer of protection that's created by the commission, right? By the committee or commission that just says, hey, we want to participate in this process and be able to have proper analysis with public testimony, but at the same time, as you spoke about, Madam Chairwoman, the expertise that it would serve on that committee or commission to be able to analyze the machines that qualify under the RFP. Is that correct?
Yeah, the members of the commission certainly, are going to be qualified, and you'll see in the amendments we want to make sure that we have, folks with election systems experience as part of that commission. But they also, again, they will be doing all of this through public hearings. I think the bill prescribes that they would, upon signature of the governor of this bill, should it pass, that the commission be appointed by September 1st, and they start their work immediately and have their report done by December. So the idea would be, again, for them to have public hearings, bring in any experts, anyone from the public that wants to weigh in on what are the voting systems that we want in Louisiana. Again, it's not picking vendors. It's talking about categories of voting systems. And that's everything from the machine itself by which you would cast your ballot, how there might be an audit trail, how the votes are tallied, the software, by which it gets transmitted to the Secretary of State's office. It's the whole kit and caboodle is the system. And so these folks would bring all the resources to bear on that discussion and say, okay, for this investment that we're going to have to live with for the next 10 or 20 or 30 years and potentially spend $100 million in taxpayer dollars, this is the system that we want to invest in, the family of machines. And again, to my knowledge, all of the vendors offer products in all of those systems. And so it's just really a matter of the trade-off and pros and cons and all the different systems that the voters in this state want to invest in.
So this is not only a layer of protection, but a layer of transparency as well. It allows a voice to be heard. Do the commission that is being created with the experts, do they participate in the RFP writing process, or they just monitor the process? Do they weigh in on that at all?
No, they don't. No, because again, that's the responsibility of the Secretary of State and the Office of State Procurement, but they will do it basically, again, I go back and I think of it as a funnel. The commission is the first decision. You're looking at what are the families of voting systems that you want. Do you want ballot marking devices, for example? Or do you want DREs? Those are the things that we're used to, the big clunky machines we've been voting on forever. Or maybe you want paper and pencil or some kind of a system that uses paper ballots. Those are all choices. And so the commission would get educated on that. Not everyone on the commission is going to be an expert. There will be some legislators on the commission, Secretary of State, Commissioner of Elections. There will be obviously knowledgeable people on the commission as well. And so, and lots of public testimony. So, we don't need experts on the commission necessarily. I mean, we will have some, but there will be lots of other experts that will be, that we will have access to and that we can invite to testify, before the commission. Then based on those that family of voting system that the commission selects, the Secretary of State then will talk about developing then state standards there are federal standards already that the vendors will have to meet in the RFP. And those federal standards, by the way, were just updated in February. The last time they'd been updated was in 2005. So the federal standards are already building in some different expectations as it relates to cybersecurity and things like that. So they'll have to meet the federal standards, but then every state has state standards. And in many cases, they would be things like, how you're providing for disabled voters and other things could be included in a state standard. And the secretary will, again, use the APA process to promulgate those. And as you know, with any agency in state government, they will do that. There's that they get published in a document, right, where the public can provide comments. Generally, I think for over a 30-day period. The oversight committees then are notified of those. We have an opportunity then to call a hearing should we choose to discuss those. And I would suspect that we would. And so there's again, lots of input there in terms of those state standards before they get finalized. And then the standards then kind of funnel down to, okay, now we have given guidance on what we want the family of voting systems to be. We have the standards in Louisiana that could be different from the standards in other states. And then go write the nitty-gritty details in the RFP and the exact specifications that, again, provide for full input, full participation from all the vendors. So the intent, of course, is not to be so narrowly prescriptive, that you prevent everyone from participating, but to put enough detail in there so that vendors understand what we're looking for, and it provides for, whatever innovation or differences that they have to address the needs of our state. And so, again, there's public input in every step of that process, except the RFP. When it gets down to the nitty-gritty, it's the Secretary's job, along with the Office of State Procurement, to draft the RFP and with respect to the procurement laws and codes that are already in place. So it's a fairly prescriptive process. They'll develop the RFP, put it out for bid, and then the evaluation committee will evaluate those proposals, do a public testing of all the machines, et cetera. And they will award it based on their rubric, and then it continues again. All of that is already in the procurement code. But I believe the point is, by having a much more open and transparent process on the front end, where we will have all weighed in on what's important in terms of standards, what are the types of systems that we want in our state, we will have all had input on the front end with the hope and the expectation that we will all be happy and satisfied at the end with the result, because we have done all of the homework up on the front end.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Reese for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to relay to you that how happy I was when I saw that you filed this bill, because this, I think, does a good job of addressing a lot of concern. I'm amazed at how many citizens back in my district have taken such a deep and keen interest in how we go about selecting our next round of voting devices. And I think this is a really great way to not only bring public input, but bring a tremendous amount of transparency that will bring a great deal of comfort, I think, to the citizens that I represent that have, like I said, some very genuine concern about something they probably weren't thinking a lot about prior to the last election cycle. And now everybody's somewhat more knowledgeable about it, and some people very passionate about it. So I've reviewed it, and I think it's a great approach that brings the public in from the very beginning as you start scoping what type of machines and what our requirements are going to be. I think you mentioned the timeline, and that was going to be part of my question, because I know we're in a contract extension period with our current machines that I guess will run out at some point, and I guess we could extend it again at some point if we needed to. But does the timeline that you're proposing here kind of fit what our procurement timeline needs to be?
That's probably a better question for the secretary. When he has an opportunity to speak to that. Yes, I do think we are leasing some equipment right now, and having, those are for several months, and we're having to extend those leases because we need the equipment, and some of our equipment is breaking down, and the parts are difficult to get or are not available. And so, yes, and I think, again, I would obviously defer to the Secretary's judgment about the best window by which to purchase machines and transition them into our inventory, given whatever the timeline is for future elections. But my sense of urgency was in at least kicking off the commission as quickly as possible and starting the process. It doesn't stop you from, again, getting the commission to work, developing the state standards, certifying people to those standards. You can do all of that, and then it'll be the Secretary's decision as to when's the best time to actually launch the RFP and begin that process to purchase the machines. Whether it's before the congressional elections, for example, or after. I mean, that would be, he would be in the best position to be more knowledgeable about the timeline, to be able to train people on the new machines, both workers and voters. And, there's a lot of work to do when you're making a major change like this. I mean, most of us have never voted on a different machine than the one that we're voting on now. And so it'll be a major shift. And I know he spent some time thinking about exactly how to implement that program when you're switching over all of the machines in your state.
Well, I think whatever that cost is to extend leases and continue the use of our current machines is a cost worth paying to get this process right, whatever that is, and whatever that timeline is necessary, to implement your proposal. So thank you for bringing it, and that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Madam Chairwoman, as far as the committee makeup, and I'm sure that's probably part of the amendments that you're carrying, but would you like to speak to how those committee members are chosen or appointed?
Well, if you like, maybe, I don't know if other members have kind of basic introductory questions. If you like, Senator, maybe we'll introduce the amendments and we can go through that, because you're right, that is a big piece of the amendment is the makeup of the commission. That's fine. So if you would, I guess I can offer these amendments. I don't know what the set number is.
Senator Womack has a question for you.
Okay, Senator.
Yeah, Senator, thank you for bringing this bill. Is it any other states that are doing something along these lines that you know of?
There are, and I don't have the list of states with me, but the idea of a commission like this is not new. It is done in other states. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So it's quite a few amendments, and I think what Matt is passing out is the amendments, and then kind of a hand-edited version of the bill with the amendments in it. So it's a little bit easier to read and to see exactly what was changed. So I will make an attempt. I will make an attempt to walk through this if I can.
No bills for the public to look at since they've been amended?
Yeah, we've got amendments for the public as well. They're extensive. It makes it a little bit difficult to read. It is largely, and these were done basically in concert with the Secretary, so much of his input is incorporated in these amendments, as well as things that I wanted to change. Okay, I think they're making some additional copies. Would you like to wait, Chairman, or would you like for me to proceed?
Yeah, it will wait for the additional copies, please.
Okay.
was one that was originally in the repeal right here about prohibiting. Just says that was going to be repealed, and it's keeping it now, saying that nothing can prohibit.
All right, okay. That's kind of nip. I think they'll let that go.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go. We'll get some more copies made here shortly, but why don't we start on your amendments?
Okay. All right. Again, I apologize for the lengthy amendments here, but I think they're all good clarifications. So Amendment 1, I'm just going to try to walk through these the best I can. You know, Amendment 1 is basically putting 1352C back in. This was, again, a good suggestion from the Secretary of State. It's just saying nothing in this chapter shall prohibit absentee by mail and early voting as otherwise provided in this title. It's just acknowledging if there's any conflicts, we want to make sure that was not intended. Amendment 2. Yeah, Amendment 2 is under the section that deals with certification standards, state standards in the certification process. And it is saying the Secretary of State shall appoint no fewer than 3, but no more than 5 in making the examination provided for in this section. This is talking about the experts that we're going to involve in certifying the machines that the vendors would like to have certified. And Amendment 3 says instead of us charging $500, we're going to charge $5,000. The vendors that are requesting that their machines be certified, will pay that. All right, Amendment 4 begins the section discussing the commission and the membership of the commission. So, we have the Commissioner of Elections or his designee. We'll have 2 House members and 2 Senate members appointed by the Speaker and the President. Amendment 4 says this will be a member appointed by the Governor. That's really just sort of a clarification. Amendment 5 says the Secretary of State will be in there, so we're deleting the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. It'll be the Secretary of State and the Commissioner of Administration. Amendments 5 and 6. Amendment 7 deletes the chairman of JLCB and the chief information officer of the Office of Technology Services. You'll see in Amendment 8 and 9, we're adding in an expert on cybersecurity appointed by the chairman of the Louisiana Cybersecurity Commission. That was a more appropriate way to word that. Amendment 10 talks about the executive director of the Governor's Advisory Council on Disability Affairs. Amendment 11 deletes the League of Women Voters or the AARP. And then Amendment 12, again, says that the Secretary of State will basically convene the initial meeting of the commission as opposed to the Commissioner of Elections no later than September 1st of this year. And, of course, the bill goes on to say that the Secretary of State will serve as the initial chair until chairman is elected in that commission, and they will continue to work until they conclude their work in December. Amendment 13 clarifies it's not the Office of State Procurement. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Amendment 13 is talking about the staffing for this commission will be the Department of State and the Office of State Procurement to provide administrative staff and resources to the commission. Amendment 14, again, just takes out JLCB and the Office of Technology Services as being recipients of the report, which is due December 1st of 2021. Amendment 15, instead of Office of State Purchasing, it's Procurement. Amendment 16 is really just quoting the statute here that is setting up the review committee or the evaluation committee. Again, Amendment 17, this is where we're beginning the evaluation committee. So these are the folks that are evaluating the RFP proposals that are submitted and working through a rubric to try to score all of the bidders. So we're changing review committee to evaluation committee in 17 and 18. And it looks like probably, Matt, we missed one on page 7, line 29. We need to catch that next time. Beginning with Amendment 19, this is where we're specifying which folks to be on the evaluation committee. Not exactly the people, but the types of people. So it calls for a faculty member of a Louisiana post-secondary education institution with engineering or computer science expertise, a member of the Louisiana State Bar Association, so we have some legal input into those very lengthy proposals. The third person is a person with 5 years of experience with training or education in electronic voting systems and procedures. And we have talked about, again, kind of an amendment between here and the floor that would include a representative from the clerk of court and the registrar of voters, both here on the evaluation committee as well as a member of the commission. So those will be amendments that we will add between here and the floor. Amendment 20 adds a person who presides over a parish board of election supervisors, and a representative from the Office of the Secretary of State who is not serving on the commission. Would add those to the evaluation committee. Amendment 21 deletes really the requirement that the chair of the House and Senate governmental committees approve of the individual people that are appointed to the evaluation committee. It didn't seem appropriate to me for us to do that in terms of the exact people. I think we are prescribing the types of skills that we want in the legislation. I don't think we need to be involved in knowing exactly the people that are going to be serving in that capacity. Amendment 22 takes out some discussion about political parties. I thought that was kind of irrelevant. Amendment 23, again, is changing review to evaluation committee. Amendment 24 was similar to Amendment 1. Amendment 25, upon signature of the governor. So, again, I apologize. Most of those amendments, again, were focused on kind of changing the complexion of the commission and the evaluation committee. I think, again, we've identified that we need to probably add some expertise with a representative from the registrar of voters and clerk of court in both of those entities. And, with your permission, we'll take care of that between here and the floor.
Members, are there any questions on Amendment 613? I'll offer Amendment 613 if there's no objection. None heard, so moved. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Do we have Secretary of State or anyone from Secretary of State's office?
We do.
There
Yeah.
you are, hiding behind the column.
Behind the column. Keeping a low profile, but taking good notes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chairman and members and Madam Chairwoman. I do have some prepared remarks. Want to make sure I covered everything.
Would you state your name
Yes,
for the
of
record,
course.
please?
Kyle Ardwin, Secretary of State. I would normally say good morning, but it is now afternoon as we're moving through this process. And I want to thank you all for this opportunity to work with you all. When I proposed the most recent RFP, my office and I followed the law precisely, and we're transparent about the process. So this is the election code. This is what we have to base it on. This is our printout of the procurement code. And then this is the procurement handbook provided by the Office of State Procurement on their website that we downloaded and followed. Along with, I had an attorney work with us throughout the process. But I want you to know I heard the voices of you all and the public loud and clear. I halted the process so that I could work with you all on the best way to solicit competitive bids for our voting machines moving forward. I'm always open to input from individuals and groups as to how we can improve the voting experience in Louisiana, which is exactly why I created the Louisiana Commission on Election Integrity and Voting. I am more than willing to continue those discussions, as I've already had with Chairwoman Hewitt. We were both early birds this morning and spent about 2 hours on the phone working out some of these concerns. And, of course, we worked over the weekend on amendments. So we've been working really hard. I do appreciate that this legislation removes references to the direct record electronic voting machines, or Louisiana Revised Statutes 18:1365, which was written soon after the 2000 presidential election. It mandates the use of paging direct record electronic voting machines. This technology was relatively new at that time. I have said before that the current law is too narrow in scope as to which machines Louisiana is allowed to purchase. Removing this reference in existing law will potentially open the bid process to more vendors and allow us to explore all available options among the latest and most secure voting technology. While I instead originally proposed that the Board of Election Supervisors take the place of this proposed commission, I believe the board is made up of those with necessary expertise that would be best suited to make some of the recommendations as to the type, nature, and requirements of any new RFP. While the chairwoman and I have a difference of opinion on this, we have agreed to work together toward a solution, and I think we're on the path of that solution. I'd also note that this legislation will create serious conflicts with current procurement laws. If, for example, the new commission directs me to craft an RFP that a voting machine company protests and the chief procurement officer sustains that protest, as Secretary of State, I would have no discretion. Would I be obligated to follow the Commission's decision or that of the Chief Procurement Officer? Furthermore, the Procurement Code gives the agency head, in this case the Secretary of State, the discretion to cancel solicitation in the best interest of the state. What happens if the proposals committee scores a winning bid that the Secretary believes would not be in the best interest of the state? Under the new law, the Secretary would have no discretion and would be forced to make the award notwithstanding that belief. While not the author's intent, this bill creates an added layer of bureaucracy without reconciling it to the current procurement code. We both have pledged to each other to work through this issue, and I believe that we'll be able to get there. I am more than willing to continue the work with this committee, this chamber, your counterparts in the House, and any other interested party as it relates to how we run elections in Louisiana. I am very willing to work more closely with you all on the next RFP. I will hold public hearings throughout the process. I was elected on a promise of procuring new technology to replace our 30-year-old fleet of voting machines, and I intend to make good on that promise. I am blessed with an incredible staff and work with knowledgeable partners at all levels of government, including the incredible clerks of court and registrars of voters on the local level, and also the field operations and administration folks that I work with, as well as all the cybersecurity entities that we work with. They, along with all of our partners, will work together to carry out the spirit of this legislation. Therefore, I offer my promise to work with you, Madam Chairwoman, and members of this committee and the legislature on improving this legislation as it moves through the process. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you for being here and for your pledge of working with the chairwoman in this committee going forward. We understand it's a difficult position. And certainly crafting an RFP that makes sense to take in everybody's concerns is a very valuable thing. Would you speak, because I know this is a question that all of us get on a daily basis, and many in this room would like to discuss and hear more of, but when you're crafting that RFP and you're looking at the machines and the specs and everything that we're looking at for safety, right, for integrity, would you speak to the basically the technology at hand with the new machines that we're considering or will consider that have the ability to, A, they're not connected to the internet, correct?
Correct.
2, they have the ability of having some form of a paper or printed backup to the machines themselves, because I know that a lot of the concerns are we need to move backwards to a paper ballot, which may be the safest form, but at the same time it may not be practical, and you can speak to that better than I. But would you speak about that, because I know that's a concern with everybody in this room and our constituents back home?
Sure. So in the previous RFP, we were requiring some process by which the voter could be the first auditor of their own vote. And that is, they would make their choices on the screen of the machine and then have some sort of either a printout or a viewable printout of their choices, and that they could audit those choices to make sure that that was compliant with what their intention was, and then make sure it's the same on the machine, sort of side by side or hand in hand, however they do it. And so therefore that would have provided for the first audit. Then the paper would be kept, and then the paper would be utilized to audit the performance of each machine to make sure that it captured the voter's intent, and we could utilize the paper for recounts if necessary.
Okay. Well, that's an important thing. I mean, obviously the concern is the machines are hooked up to the internet, and that's not the case.
Right. Let me speak to that. So Louisiana has never had any of our machines connected to the internet. It's been our policy since way back before I ever even got to the agency, and that will be a continued policy. There was in the RFP we were very clear that there could be no capability to connect it to the internet. That component would have to be disabled, and then we would inspect it to make sure it was clearly disabled, and if not, then we would decertify that equipment.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Any questions, members, for Ms. Secretary? Okay. I think the next thing we've got to do is we've got to go through our witness cards, if you've got a few minutes. State witness cards, Melissa Henry, St. Tammany Clerk of Court, present, will provide information if necessary. Michael T. Barrett, representing self, present, would like to speak. Adele Schaeferman, Louisiana Power Coalition, present, would like to speak. Jonathan Walker, Division of Administration, present, and provide information. Craig Skero, if I'm pronouncing that right, Working People of Louisiana, present, would like to speak. Steve Rayborn, Louisiana Registrar of Voters Association, present, provide information. Nancy Landry, Secretary of State, present, provide information. Lanny Durio, if I pronounce that right, Secretary of State, present, provide information if necessary. Sherry Hadsky, present, provide information if necessary. Nicholas Meyer, Secretary of State, present, provide information. Secretary of State, spoken. Maya Yordanov, present. Forgive me if I pronounce that, from the people present would like to speak, and Candy Purley, Integrity Matters, present and would like to speak. So at the moment, let's get Candy from Integrity Matters. Is she? Yeah, I'm gonna bring two up. And Maya, if you would like to come to the table too, please. Thank you much.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. If, with your permission, I'd like to have my friend here give you copies of my remarks.
This one.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Candy Peavy. This is Susan Cage. We represent Integrity Matters, a recently organized group of citizens in Shreveport who came together after the 2020 election with serious concerns about our election integrity. Our freedoms are gradually being eroded everywhere we turn, everywhere. And the most important thing that our state can do and that you can do to enact legislation to help us do is to protect our voting system with the most safe, secure, fair system possible. That means absolutely no connections to the internet at any point in the system. This should not be a partisan issue. Safety is not partisan. Security is not partisan. Fairness is not partisan. The truth is not partisan. We understand that Louisiana has approximately $100 million budgeted to upgrade our current voting system, and we understand that our system needs upgrading. We support the language in Senator Hewitt's bill, SB 221, addressing more oversight for the procurement and certification of the machines. We support, in theory, establishing a voting system technology commission and appreciate the guidelines you have established for that commission. But this bill does not propose legislation that actually and truly safeguards the process of voting on Election Day. It does not provide directives to the Voting System Technology Commission that machines must not connect to the internet, even though it is widely known that machines that connect to the internet are extremely vulnerable to hacking. Indeed, Dominion voting machines have a built-in feature to allow remote access. Additionally, SB 221 has no mention of paper ballots, which are truly the safest and least expensive option available to us. We have all seen reports of huge banks, corporations, even Twitter and Facebook, whose user information has been hacked. There's absolutely no reason to believe that any voting system that connects to the internet will not be vulnerable to hacking. The only way to protect our votes, secure fair elections, and thus preserve our precious democratic republic is to convert to a voting system that does not connect to the internet in any way whatsoever. Therefore, it is the strong recommendation of our group in Shreveport that SB 221 should include the language of Representative Valerie Hodges' bill, HB 599, that contains very specific and strong language in its section 1366 for voting system requirements so that there is no risk of exposure of our voting system to the internet. HB 599 must be heard in committee, and we recommend that it then be considered either for adoption in whole or incorporated into this bill, 221. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, and thank all of you for the work you do here on our behalf. Now more than ever, we are depending on the laws that you write to protect us and to protect our freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you for making that drive. Miss Maya, please.
Thank you.
Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, it was perfect. You
Okay.
did a great job. Thank you. Thank you all. We really appreciate the opportunity, and we really appreciate Senator Hewitt's initiative and all her time and efforts and energy she puts into this. We really appreciate it. She's a great patriot, and we love her, and we support her in everything that she does. On this particular bill, okay, someone asked me last week, who are you representing? I'm representing the people. I'm part of the people. We meet, we speak. We have a group of hundreds of Louisiana citizens. And as Senator Reese mentioned, we are all talking about it all the time, every day. Because if we don't keep our elections safe, there's nothing after that. We can be overtaken and stuff like that. So this bill, in our opinion, people are watching us from the group that couldn't come here, etc. It's a great start. It's a big step ahead in the effort to secure our election integrity of the state. Unfortunately, it doesn't cross the big gap that we need to cross, but it's a good start. It's all the framework and commissions and the oversights, etc. What we are concerned with is that it's not lacking expertise, it's not lacking committees, it's not lacking oversight, it's lacking the voice of the people. I don't think in this bill we are heard. I mean, we are talking here about career politicians. We respect you guys, we love you, we appreciate your efforts and everything, but based on the recent events, we don't trust all politicians. If you are paid to do something and you have financial interest in something, you're not doing it of the pureness of your heart and of love of God and country. You're doing it because you want to advance your career, you want to make money, you want to, just pure, simple human traits of nature. And therefore, we don't have any, we don't have investment in the process. We don't make money of it. Our only goal is to secure the future of our children. We want our children to grow in a country that is free, that's patriotic, that when they vote, they know that their vote is counted. Know that someone in China will fraction the vote or will switch it and stuff. So I take huge offense to Mr. Ardoin's statements when he says that Louisiana was not connected to the internet. In this age of informational access and technologies, okay, let me ask you, how many of you have watched The Absolute Proof? By raise of hands. How many of you have watched, thank you. How many of you have watched Kill Chain on HBO, on where Amy Klobuchar talks about that? How many of you have watched it? Exactly. I mean, in this time when information is available, not knowing those things is a choice. It's a personal choice. And we, the people, feel offended by the personal choice of politicians not to learn more and to be informed. We know Louisiana was hacked. There is an IP address that comes from China. And I guess in today's latest installment of this information, it will be released where exactly in China we were hacked from. But to say that we're not connected to internet is, I don't know, it's kind of not believable. It's naive, exactly. And it is a choice. You can learn about those things. If you choose not to learn, don't blame the people that we don't trust you. We want to trust you. We chose you. We sent you here. We're paying your salaries, besides the corporation contributions. We know which corporations give contributions to you. We see all those things. And we're okay with that. I know you have to feed your families. We have to feed our families. But you have to do your job, Present the people. I understand. Some will get rich, some won't. I don't care. It's your personal conscience. But you have to remember your oath, as I said last week, and present the people. And we, the people, are not happy. We don't want our elections to be connected to internet, as the lady already said here. And now they are. And the committees. I know all these committees are really good, and I applaud Senator Hewitt for this, but we, the people, are not represented in these committees. We want representation of grassroots people that don't have skin in the game, they don't make money of machines, they don't make money of anything, that only care for the good of this country and the future of our children. So unless you guys add us, the people, to your processes, it is still the left hand helping the right hand, one politician helping another politician. It is what it is. We know what's going on, we see it, and we want to work together. You know, what's done is done. Let's work together. Let's return people's trust in the system and in our elections, and let's get election system that work and acceptable for everyone. So basically, the recommendations we have, in short, are that to those committees, people are added, like grassroots activists, that cybersecurity specialists and stuff that we can trust, that we know that the fact that we have a public hearing, okay, you will hear us complain. Mr. Erdogan has been going to many meetings, and he's heard a lot of people screaming at him, for which I apologize on behalf of the other people, because people are angry. People are angry, and if we're not heard, we will continue to be angry, and we will continue to speak up. So let's establish the fact that people are not happy, and let's work with the people for the betterment of the state. We all live here. You have children here. You have grandchildren here. Do you want them to live to grow in a communist country? I'm coming from one. You don't. You think because you're, in those positions, you're safe. No, you're not safe. Once we get there, nobody is safe. And all your children, and we will be the most hated generation in the history, because we have the chance to save our state and this country. And if we don't, all the future generations will hate us. So let's work together. Help us, help you to get, legislature, election integrity that works for the people, that protects our interests, not the interests of the corporations, not the interests of those that pay the highest, but of our people. And so if Senator Hewitt could add some grassroots people to the commissions, that would be a good way to improve this bill. Other than that, we'll applaud her efforts and would really like to work with her and with all you on this.
Thank you, Maya. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we recognize the fact that this is a very sensitive topic, and everybody's very passionate. We appreciate all of you being here today and wishing to speak. And we're going to let those who would like to speak heard. We just ask that we try to be as concise as possible from time standpoint, if you don't mind. I realize it's tough because we're all very passionate about this. The next two I'd like to hear from Craig Skero, if I pronounce that right. And
Skero, sir.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Adele Schaeferman from the Louisiana Power Coalition. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, distinguished senators, Senator Hewitt, I thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm here representing the working people that don't have the time to be present at this hearing and to speak on their behalf. My name is Craig Skero. I live in Folsom, Louisiana, and I'm retired after 36 years of the oil and gas industry. I have a background in electrical engineering, computer technologies, and cybersecurity. And what I would tell you that cybersecurity, because of the way technology has evolved, has turned into a bolt-on process. We do not need any superfluous hardware, superfluous software that is in a system that is not intended for the purpose in which it's required to solve. There are technologies that are available that are non-IT technologies that are built inherently secure. Maybe I could describe DNA secure from a hardware and software perspective. Those are the technologies that should be the foundation of our voting systems. And as a technologist, and I've been talking to a lot of people just as Maya has, people want to be able to have trust in their vote. And that means that we have to have, as the document of record, a secure piece of paper that cannot be teleported to China, cannot be teleported outside the United States of America, cannot be teleported outside our state. Then we need to have counting systems that are 100% auditable, that are image-based, so that as the electronics is processed, you can go in and audit that ballot with a person that has eyes that can see and look at that and confirm that that validates against the document of record, which is the security paper. In warfare, if you consolidate and have a center, like a cloud or whatever you want to call it, if you conquer that thing, all of that is irrelevant. In a swarm situation where we have all the precincts and the counting is done locally at the precinct, and there's a mechanism I won't go to here now that can bring that information securely to the Secretary of State's office by multiple means, that it can be validated. Our vote is so important that no one company, and I repeat, no one company can have total control of how the vote is counted in the outcome. When we deal with very critical systems, such as that manages an airplane that flies through the sky, and if something goes wrong, hundreds of people can plummet to their death. In a nuclear reactor, when you have to scram the nuclear reactor to put it to the safe state, those systems are not based around conventional IT technology because of the superfluous hardware, software that were never intended with the security. So what I would say is that all the voting technologies that are out there in the marketplace today are inappropriate for the mission critical objective of counting our vote. And I think that, if the system is inherently secure, there's no need to cyber secure because it's inherently secure. Likewise with the software. Software cannot be modified without it being, blatantly obvious that one tittle or one dot has been changed. When the computer starts up, there's no way, that's another time when the computer is extremely vulnerable. So when a computer's booting up, it needs to be protected, because if not, then when it boots up, the system can boot up in a privileged mode, and in that privileged mode, the keys of the system belong to the boot process. So I don't want to go into more technical detail right now. I do support Senator Hewitt's structural approach to this, but I, like Maya, feel that it's completely lacking in the fact that we could have an average citizen like myself that may be retired, pick another one, pick someone else, that can sit there and participate as a member who's representing the public of Louisiana. I want the truth. That's all I want. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Skero. Appreciate that. Ms. Adele Schaeferman.
Yes, I'm
From-
Adele
from home.
Schaeferman from Shreveport, and with your permission, I have a friend that has some handouts to pass out.
We've got 'em.
So while she's doing that, did you do? Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
We've got 'em.
all right. all
Floor
right.
is yours.
Here I go. This is going to be very different. Many have advised for paper ballots, but have not included details of exactly how to use paper ballots. I present this method because it is currently used in the entire country of France. France has banned machines and mail-in ballots, saying that they make cheating too easy. So here's how it's done. Voters must show ID and must sign a registration book. Then voters are given an envelope with the names of each candidate on a small piece of paper called a ticket. There are some tickets that have no name, and these are white tickets. In the voting booth, the voter leaves the ticket of the candidate or candidates he wants in the envelope. If there's no candidate he desires, he leaves a white ticket in the envelope. He puts that envelope in the voting box, and he puts the unwanted candidates or proposals in the discard box. He leaves the voting booth. Votes are counted by citizens of both parties. Citizens of both parties also observe the procedures and the counting. The paper ballots are secured for recounting if necessary. The number of votes can be cross-checked with the number of signatures in the registration book. No doubt in 1952, the new technology was considered an improvement. However, voters have lost confidence in machines, which can be corrupted even without connection to the internet. Paper voting is less complicated.
less corruptible, and less expensive by far. An added plus is the paper evidence. Not scanned or counted in a machine, but handed directly from the voter to the ballot box. So, below is some information I found on Wikipedia a few days ago, April 16th, 2021. Quote, several countries have tried electronic voting approaches and stopped because of difficulties or concerns about security and reliability, unquote. The countries are Germany, Netherlands, France, and Ireland. Quote, electronic voting requires capital spending every few years to update equipment as well as annual spending for maintenance, security, and supplies, unquote. And I would add this also. There are frequent costs of transportation and storage for machines. I'm going to conclude with just these final thoughts of my own. In the U.S., if a federal congressional seat can be won by only 6 votes in Iowa, it is imperative that the most secure method of voting is adopted. Citizens don't want new and improved voting machines. We want fundamental change in our voting system that will restore confidence in our elections and confidence in our leaders. We want leaders who lead and have possibility thinking and who consider the taxpayer's burden. We want leaders who listen to citizens and who take their time in making this important decision. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. Michael Barrett, President, would like to speak, please.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it. I'll try and make this brief. And thanks for your time. I know you guys dedicate, you dedicate your life to making things better here in Louisiana. Sorry about that. I usually talk pretty loud, but that's better. Everybody that's talked so far, I concur with. So I want to say, and actually, the lady that just spoke, and I apologize for not being able to repeat your name, I thought she made the most sense and was the most practical that I've heard today. We are all very emotional about this because we have seen what has happened to the rest of the world. We don't want it to happen here. And you guys hold the keys to the answer. Now, this bill is a good bill for structure. It does not have the public involved as much as it should from day one and every day henceforth. Also, it doesn't call out, we start with a secure paper ballot. Everything else doesn't matter. We have to have a record of that ballot, and it has to be something that can't be destroyed for a number of years so that we can go back, and if there is 6 votes difference, we can verify it. And we don't depend on any machines, any electronics, any zeros or ones that come out of the wall in electricity. We can look at it as human beings, and we know who voted for what. Not who, because we do want to keep that private. So we got a lot of bills coming here. I've been here a few times over the past 10 years. I helped with the Convention of States passing a resolution here, and I'm glad we did. And I still hope that continues in the other states and that we get something done, because our federal government is out of control, totally out of control. So if we don't, as states, stand up for our rights, they're not going to stand up for our rights. And voting is our primary responsibility here in the state of Louisiana. We have to secure that vote. And the only way I know of securing it is to have a secure paper ballot to start with. Everything else is just a moot point, because we can count those. And I've heard not Senator, but the Secretary of State say, oh, well, it'll take too long to count all our votes. Well, that's not true. He's promulgating a falsehood. He just is trying to cover up, I think. He doesn't want to change. He wants to buy machines. There's a lot of money behind these things. And if we want to know motivation, the old story is follow the money. If you follow the money, you'll find the motivation. And I'm not saying that from anybody here in this room or any other corporation, but that's true when you go to investigate things that have gone wrong. is you follow the money. So I don't want new machines. I want a secure paper ballot. And I've been watching this ever since November 4th because we know something really bad happened. We don't know all the details, but the truth will come out. And we need to establish here in Louisiana that we're going to do it the right way. We're going to start with a secure paper ballot. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Barrett, appreciate you. Cards in support, wishing to speak, Dale Clary with Convention of States. Come on up. And Elizabeth Kogler with many concerned citizens.
I'll pass.
You'll pass. Okay. Floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Dale Clary, resident of Prairieville, born and raised in Baton Rouge, here as a volunteer for the Convention of States Action. I will be brief. We also have grave concerns for the integrity of elections in Louisiana as well as in the country. We've all heard significant reports of election irregularities all across the country. We don't know the truth of some of these things, but we've seen enough adequate and seemingly reasonable reports that the truth needs to be investigated. That's why we appreciate this Senate Bill 221, because in our view it does that. It does that very thing. It allows an in-depth evaluation of the voting systems and the voting machines in Louisiana. It provides a process and a structure, and frankly, it's a public process. It's a public structure with public testing. In our view, to borrow from a card game analogy, let's put the cards on the table and let the chips fall where they may. I think everybody needs to know. And this is a good way to do it. So we are definitely in favor of this bill. I would offer a friendly amendment to echo what some of the other folks have said here, is we'd like to have more direct citizen involvement on the commission and or the committee or both. We just think that's necessary to rebuild the trust in the election system. And that's not to be critical of Secretary Ardoin, who's done a lot of good hard work in the elections in Louisiana. That's just, it's a new reality here with elections these days, and we need to be aware of that. So we would urge more direct citizen involvement, but we're definitely in support of the bill. Thank you.
Hold on one second. Senator Foyle, you have a question?
Thanks, Mr. Vice Chair. I couldn't resist Mr. Clary since I've known you for a long time. And I know people may have different ideas on the citizen involvement. I think it's a good idea. You know, I'm looking at the nominations now. The governor has 4. Those would be citizens. 50%. What's a good number? 75%.
Don't really have a number.
Someone's got to appoint them. You know.
That's the problem. We haven't figured that out yet because we just got the amendments a little while ago and we were flipping through some of those, and we'd be glad to have some input on that. There does need to be somebody who needs to do the appointing.
Right.
And we saw before that the political parties had some of the appointment powers. Those were taken out. I'd be happy to discuss that. We could do that. Convention of States Action could give you some proposals, but I'm sure there's lots of organizations that'd be happy to put some people in there.
Yeah, I'm interested in those proposals, and I think it's a good idea to get as much public involvement as we can. So thank you for your time.
Yeah,
thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Let's see. In support, not wishing to speak, Angele Levine, Juliette Laughlin, Susan DeCourt, Susan Cage, Christy Cross, John Romero, and Jennifer Carrigan, if I pronounce that correctly. We do have some cards in opposition wishing to speak. Let's see. First up, Ms. Limnar Whitney and Christopher Alexander, if present.
Thank you very much, committee. Sharon Hewitt, I thank you very much for the bill. I mean, I know that we looked at it last night in its previous form before the amendments, and after listening to the amendments, we certainly, I personally feel that there was improvements made to the bill, and I appreciate you talking with us outside and giving us confidence in the procedure and the bill itself. However, as many have already spoken to the matter, we still feel as the public that we really just still don't even have a direct say-so in accordance to what's going to be done in the process. We'll be doing exactly what we're doing right now, sitting in the seats and then having to give comments, but we won't have a voting representation of the concerned citizens of Louisiana. And quite frankly, like most other people said, with the secure ballots, Without the secure paper ballots, I really feel like the citizens of Louisiana are being denied their right to a free and fair election. We don't even stand a fighting chance without a secure paper ballot. As demonstrated by a show of hands, it looks like a lot of our senators and House representatives, I've been tried to get in touch with a lot of members. I know that you are restricted by time. I know that you don't have time, even as Kyle Ordwin said. He doesn't have the time to do the digging and finding out the information as we have. He's mentioned that to us. We're digging deep. I have all kind of websites and sites that you can just click on to a link and get educated and get caught up rather quickly about what's been going on and what our direct fear is going to be happening in the state of Louisiana. As of now, it is not. We're on these old Sequoia machines bought by Dominion. Experts will even tell you that these machines are even more secure than the machines that we're going to be buying into later. So whether you're talking about the 3 major vending machine manufacturers out there, you've got Dominion, you've got ES&S, and yes, I'll say the D word, and I'll even say the F word, fraud. You know, Kyle talks about there's chaos in other states. It was fraud that happened in other states. There are still court cases that are being heard to demonstrate the amount of fraud that has taken place in the 2020 election, whether that be by ballots, absentee ballots, day of voting machines, ballot harvesting, drop boxes, whether it's done by the governor, secretary of states, where it's failure by our judges, even going down to elected officials, even the commissioners. All of this has been documented. All of this is actually, it's credible concerns by these citizens, us, the citizens of Louisiana. And for the administration not to admit that fraud has taken place and not to even be able to address some of the irregularities that has happened out there is a direct insult to the citizens of Louisiana. We're here fighting. We take our time away from our families and for our businesses to come to give witness, to stay up all nights. How many times have we communicated back and forth with each other to try to present information and give information, travel across the state of Louisiana so that we can talk to other concerned members, so that we can share and give witness to what we have already known and what our findings have revealed. So I do think that in what has been established with this review commission and also establishing a commission, it still doesn't include, without the words including, secure paper ballots. And even though it's mentioned, and I appreciate that fact by Sharon Hewitt, Senator Hewitt, by mentioning it, it's not written in the bill. So I definitely am not, I'm not in favor of that without those words being printed on the bill. And also with public input, I know that she has talked about that, and I appreciate that. And I'm certainly hoping that the public will have a lot of input. But of course, even like today, our time is restricted. We're sitting on the back row. I don't know that we'll even get to have as many public hearings as we'd like, or to even accommodate the many citizens who would like to participate in this process, rather than just the bureaucratic commission that might be established by this. And quite frankly, when I looked at the numbers and I was looking at who could be appointed by, our Democratic governor and other agencies that were written on there, I feel like the concerned citizens, we really don't even have a fighting chance. We're not even represented on there. Bureaucracy and bureaucracy is basically demonstrated on there. I don't know where the grassroots efforts of concerned citizens are on that. So, and I do agree with Adele that the fundamental change has to take place in the state of Louisiana, and it's got to come from our leaders and our leadership. And I'm looking at, my senator from, my area, Brett Allen, I appreciate everything. Even Heather Cloud. I love you dearly, and I know that you're committed to this, Sharon. I know that the members on this committee are committed. Franklin Foyle, thank you, Mike Reese. All of you are, but I really feel like our heart, our energy, our concern, sometimes I want to cry because we're losing our country. And I just don't see where there's concern, because our one vote, one right, our constitutional commitment, our Constitution is being violated. And we don't seem to have a voice that resonates loud enough with our leadership to say, we hear you, we understand. Tell us about what's available. We can tell you all kinds of different types of machineries, processes by which are now available. When you think about where we've come from the voting situation, we've come from electronics now to computer. Now we're thinking, because of what's happened, because of the fraud that has taken place, whether that's cyber attacks, whether that's direct connection to the internet by humans, by people actually falsifying and trying to do this, or it's a huge cyber attack that took place from other countries, which I don't even know how to protect yourself from that. But those things are happening. Those things have happened, and we need to be aware of that. And we can't just pretend like it didn't happen, and we're somehow in this little bitty pond, isolated. And now that we're going to be having to choose machines that are out there, we're going to be jumping into the exact same situation as all these other states. Our vulnerabilities are still going to be out there. So I just think that we really just need to hear the voices. I understand that, you've got a tough position. I understand the time and commitment it takes. However, loading a committee of bureaucrats they're not going to have any more time than the members back here that have already done the work. We've already done the work. We've done the work, the legwork, and come up with a lot of solutions and information for you. And we certainly would love to be able to share that with you. So I appreciate everything. Nobody's even talked about even the closed systems, Dominion machines. I mean, it's a machine out there. Maricopa County is undergoing a 2 million ballot count and machine investigation right now. And the problem that they're having is they can't get to these machines. They can't verify what the machine has actually voted for them. Not that they can't count physical ballots. That's easy enough. You can't get into the machine because of closed proprietary systems. That's what they're fighting so hard for you not to see, what the vote the machine has actually cast for the Maricopa County. So, I mean, all of these things need to be taken into consideration. The problem for the closed proprietary systems is probably the most important system because there's no way to verify or to check. And that's what we need. We need an audit system, a risk limiting audit at the end of the cycle so that we can go back and count physical ballots that were physically filled in by an individual. A secure paper ballot, encrypted, decrypted, through a optical scanner, tabulator, and at the end of the day, it's dropped into a lockbox. And if you have a question, you go through that, you count the optical scanner, and then you have a physical ballot in which you can do an audit for the state of Louisiana. I thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate every one of you. I've sat in that position for a while, and I understand the time, energy, effort it takes, and the commitment that you have already made, to the state of Louisiana, and the time that you take away from your families also, and it's just, this is just something that is so in depth and takes a lot of concern, passion, interest, and to funnel that much deeper into it. So I appreciate you all very much, and I certainly appreciate all the people behind me that are sitting, the concerned citizens that are here today to voice their concerns. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Ms. Whitney.
Thank you.
Mr. Alexander.
Thank you, sir. I share Lennar's sentiments, and in listening to her, it makes me wish that there were about 50 more Lennar Whitneys in the world. And if there were, I could do what Thomas Henderson did after he retired for the Cowboys. He said, "What are you doing all day?" And he goes, "Not a darn thing, and I don't even do that till after lunch." So, Lennar, thank you so much for your passion and for your consistent support of real reform and walking the walk as well as talking the talk. I've read the bill last night, and I have a few concerns about it. There is a federal court opinion out of Georgia that came out in October of last year, about 3 weeks before the presidential election. It's Curling versus Raffensperger. And I would tell you that I would caution all of you against voting for any bill on election reform in the state of Louisiana or to any new voting system in the state of Louisiana without reading that decision. It is the seminal judicial pronouncement right now on the unique vulnerabilities of our electronic voting system in the United States. The best cyber experts in the world testified for 3 or 4 days at that hearing, and Judge Totenberg concluded not only that every electronic voting system in the country is currently acutely vulnerable to cyber attacks, external manipulation, mixing and matching of votes, switching votes from one another, even fractionalized voting. No system is secure in the country right now. And on that basis, my question for Senator Hewitt at some point, perhaps we can have a conversation about this. The people who are attempting to attack our electronic voting system, and we know what's going on, and anybody who doesn't think they're trying to do that is naive because it's going on. So why is the commission that's being recommended in Senator Hewitt's bill made up in order to devise an election system that we can live with and our voters can believe in? Why is that commission comprised 95% of either politicians or people appointed by politicians, and 5% cybersecurity expert whose name we don't know and whose qualifications we are unsure of? I'm a lawyer. I don't go do cardiac, heart surgery. Heart surgeons probably don't go in court and argue cases. Why do we have politicians? And I have nothing against politicians, and I have nothing against people appointed by politicians. Y'all work very hard, and you've done some wonderful things for our state, and I'm not knocking any of you. But I would suggest that nobody on this commission, as proposed by Senator Hewitt, has the background or the technical expertise to tackle the incredibly complex issues associated with the vulnerabilities with our electronic voting system. I don't understand why we even, frankly, need a commission. You say we have time constraints. We all have time constraints. We're all busy. But if you have time to do anything as legislators, personally, not delegating it to an agency, not delegating it to a commission, if you have time to do anything, you have time to secure the most important constitutional guarantee we have under the First Amendment and under the 14th Amendment, which is the guarantee that every American who walks into a voting booth is absolutely certain that his wishes are reflected in the way that that vote is ratified. And if we do not have that assurance in this country, we do not have a country anymore. So my question would be, where are the cybersecurity experts on this commission? Why are the best cybersecurity experts on an issue so important not sitting before every one of you and explaining exactly what the vulnerabilities are? Why are they not the ones making the recommendations instead of people that the governor appoints or the chairman of the Senate in the state of Louisiana? That's number one. Number two, and I look forward to that discussion. Number two, in Raffensperger, and I'm going to probably give each of you a copy of this decision, another thing that Judge Totenberg said, based upon the testimony again of the best cybersecurity experts in the world, concluded that the only way, there is no such thing as a perfectly impregnable electronic voting system. All we can do is the best we can do, but great cyber attackers sometimes can get in there and mess it up. There's no perfect system ever. All we can do is the best we can do. And therefore, the only foolproof way to absolutely ensure the integrity of our vote, this is a federal court concluding this, is to have secure, readable, reliable paper ballots, secure paper ballots, so that if I go back into a voting booth after I've voted, I can look at my ballot, my own handwriting is reflected on there, my vote is reflected, and if there's ever a dispute in the election, it can be audited, there's a reliable recount, we know authentically who voted for what. If we don't have paper ballots, we are never going to be completely impregnable in our system. We will never have it. We have to have secure paper ballots, and I'm not sure why that is not in this bill. That should not be in an amendment, in my opinion. That should be a central primary component of this bill, if not the most important part of this bill. It's not amendment worthy, it's core bill worthy. It should be in this bill now. So those are my concerns. Again, if we have time to do anything, we have time to make absolutely certain that we can walk into a booth and know that our vote is counted. We have many, many people, ancestors of all of us here, who, when many people who were loyal to England and were very hesitant about moving forward for their freedom, a small fraction of courageous men and women had the courage, like men and women in this room sitting right here, right now. And I agree with what you said, Lenore, about all these people here. These are the patriots of our state and our country sitting behind me. These are our patriots. These are the ones that you need to listen to, because we're going to be watching and we're going to be observing, and these are the things we absolutely have to have. We owe it to our forefathers, and we owe it to our children. Thank you all.
Thank you. Hold on one second, please. Senator Full for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Mr. Alexander, I want to thank you for coming down as my constituent. You and I have worked together on a lot of things, and I appreciate your passion.
And you're a great public servant.
And you might be the kind of guy I would appoint as a politician to be on this commission.
Can I hide?
But in all seriousness, it's sort of the same question I asked
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Clary. And that's the challenge. I think more public input's good, but we have to figure out who would be the appointing authority. If it's not a politician, who would it be? And these are ideas we can share, and you can share it with myself and Senator Hewitt, and would appreciate the input.
And I look forward to working with you.
Thanks, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Mary Persido, if I pronounce that right. Come on up. And Cecile Richards, wishing to speak.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you all for your hard work. I think almost everything that I was going to say has been said, and now that the cat is out of the bag, I can say what I really wanted to say. Senator Hewitt, when I read your bill, because we've been working with both you and Valerie, as you well know, I thought, what a wonderful roof and framework for Valerie's bill. But your bill, because of its being so incomplete, is like, to me, it was like building a pyramid backwards, an upside down pyramid where all the weight is at the top and we've got nothing at the bottom. However, now that $5.99 is out of the bag, and I've read all 37 election bills, by the way, I like yours. So now that it's out of the bag, if we could pass Senator Hewitt's bill with her plans on amendment, Valerie Hodges' House Bill 599, Senator Cloud's two bills. By the way, the legislative one, I didn't even know it was an election bill because I was looking for election or voting. So when you guys read digest and stuff, you're not getting the details. You're not getting to the meat. One of the things that I find missing is there is no penalty for an elected official who is accepting campaign donations from an election company. How is that possible? Why? I mean, how is there no consequence for misconduct or malfeasance of that type? We've had that. So I can't support your bill as a standalone. I love you dearly. You know, I respect you. I think you're very smart, but I think you've got to understand that your bill by itself and your bill and many of the other bills that we're going to talk about today, they're accessories. It's like having a computer printer and a scanner and a monitor, but you don't have a tower. You don't have your motherboard. Okay, we need a motherboard. We need and I'm so thankful for Adele, because I heard somebody say that it would take us 10 months to count 3 million ballots, and I was like, that's ridiculous. I know other countries do it. India quit using machines in 2012. They've had only paper ballots. So we're that smart. We are surely that smart. We can figure it out. And so all I was going to say is thank you for all your work. I wish you guys thought that we were worth an hour and a half of your time so you could watch Kill Chain, or an hour and 20 minutes of your time so you would watch Hacking Democracy. Hacking Democracy was the prequel to Kill Chain. And guess what it's about? Louisiana. It ends in 2005. And at the end of that movie, all those machines that you see at the end of that movie, they ended up here. And that got to me more than Kill Chain. I've been an election commissioner for 3 decades now. I think we have a great front end. With what Adele described, we don't even have to change our front end. We can keep our infrastructure in place. We've got a really solid infrastructure, but we must have secure paper ballots. And going into machines, we'd be going into old technology, because all new technology is already 15 years old. We have researched it. We can give you machine numbers. We can tell you what's being used. It's all old. There's nothing new. But what Adele just described is a possibility, and it gives you an answer. And I hope you all support Senator Cloud's bills, because they are necessary to this house that we're building. If we can pass all this reform, Louisiana will have the most comprehensive election reform in the history of our nation. And we will be number one. We won't be number 3 from the bottom. We will be number 1. And we're going to do it brick by brick. You build a house from the bottom up. You don't start at the top. And that's all. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for this time.
Thank you, Mary. Ms. Richards?
Thank you. I just want to be very quick, because I really was here to say a lot of the things that have already been said. I'm just an independent citizen that talks to a lot of people, because so many people are concerned, and we have a lot of silo stuff. And I had a break in my work and was able to come to here today. But there's no mention in the bill specifically allowing for the possibility of paper ballots. Also, there's no language in the bill that tests for what I call porosity. I know there's a better word for it, but the issue with regard to the testing, that all of the election machines around the country have been tested and certified by the Federal Election Commission, or whatever the name is that they go around and they test. They've all been tested for durability, accuracy, the same words that are in this bill, which the testing has been going on, but there's not been testing, and there's no language in this bill for the type of testing, for the type of incursions that we're seeing reports of in this instance with regard to the last election. There has been a report issued on the forensic examination of a Dominion machine in Antrim County, Michigan. And if you haven't read that, I encourage you to read it. And that the results of that review, I mean, basically the machine is a colander in terms of opportunities for manipulation. And, of course, in that instance is similar to what's going on maybe in Arizona. The logs were missing, the logs of the pertinent dates. So we need to have a lot more security, and regardless of how we get there, I don't have a strong, I'm a little, just to hear a lot of commissions and all that. I mean, I definitely think the public should have input, but I don't, a lot of commissions. We have a lot of commissions. Thank you very much. I didn't want to take too much time. I appreciate everything.
Thank you, ladies. Last speaker, President would like to speak in opposition. Susan Bairnsfather, if I pronounced Susan. Come on up, please.
Susan with a long name.
Well, and Susan, while you make your way up, I'm going to read the cards that we have not wishing to speak, but in opposition: Susan Lee, Christy Hake, Catherine Alexander, Cinda Van, Jean LeBlanc, Eddie LeBlanc, Mary Cassard, I believe, Kimberly Swallow, Jennifer Miranda, Edgar Cage, Stephanie Willis, and Brenda Brock from Shreveport. The floor is yours.
Okay. So,
State
again,
your
like
name
many of the others, there are points brought up that that I had written up, but they've already been made. I will tell you that I am a statistical analyst for the pharma industry, and so I help.
Yes.
I help write code and
Go ahead.
I help write code, or have 10 years experience in writing code for the pharma industry for submissions for new drugs. So that information goes to the FDA, or it goes to the EMA in Europe. And so the pharma industry has validation for software, validation for the hardware, audits, internal audits, preceding FDA audits, and so it's done. I will say, yes, it is subject to hacking. I will say that in support of your bill, now I turned in a red card,
But in support of your bill, you have the right intention. Being a computer programmer, I will say also that even though cyber security is not my forte, I've done a lot of personal research in it. You're going to have a big challenge, like this fella is talking about, to stay ahead of the hackers. And if you connect to the internet in any way, if you have a USB port or mini USB port, any external attachment, I'm a contractor now for the pharmaceutical industry. They forbid you to put any kind of USB, flash drive, jump drive, whatever you want to call it, into their machine because you may corrupt their information. You know how pharma is about their proprietary information. So, and this thing that everybody carries around, which I say now is a misnomer for cell phone because nobody uses the phone anymore. This is a mini computer. And so when you buy the new one, it gets updated as soon as you buy it because it's been sitting on the shelf for 6 months. And when you start using it, it gets updated every 3 to 6 months. So this is what you're faced with if you're going to do machine. Even if it's not connected to the internet, you're going to have to update that software. If we are using voting machines that are 10 years old, you're way behind the curve. I just bought a laptop 9 months ago. It's been updated at least 3 or 4 times. And you know that as well as, as anyone. So, yes, the pharma does put together a new drug submission. They put it over the internet now. They will not accept paper. All of it's done over the internet now. I can guarantee you there are validation programs run on the programs, verification, audits after audit after audit. So you're looking at a lot of expense if you want to do that. Now, I'm not saying it can't be done. Pharma does it. So the other thing is the personnel, and I'm looking at you. I'm sorry it's your bill, but it's all of you, the bills that you put forth, if you're going to rely on electronic machines, you're going to have a real challenge staying in front of the black hat hackers. So I do that all the time because I'm working as a consultant. I'm working out of my house. I'm trying to keep their proprietary information secure just as an individual. That's why I've done a lot of personal research on the cybersecurity part, because I can be blacklisted if I screw up on one of their products, and I'll never work for pharma again if I'm blacklisted. So you'll have a real challenge trying to do it with the machine. And I will say again, I know it can be done because I work that way all the time. The back part of my talk was about paper ballots. So we know that will work, and as a computer programmer, I know paper works. As I said, I put together this talk about, you can't have Cat5 wires hardwired into internet. You can't have any kind of modem for Wi-Fi connected to it. But if you're going to do it, you have to do lots and lots of validation testing for the software, for the hardware. And I'm not even, my expertise is pharma. It's not cybersecurity. Your bill saying you need a computer science graduate. I'm a computer science graduate. I'm no expert. You need a cybersecurity expert in computer science. I always tell my colleagues behind me that, if you want to do brain surgery, you don't go to your podiatrist. They're both MDs, but you need to go to a brain surgeon if you've got a brain tumor. So you really need to look at hiring experts. They're going to be expensive if they're experts, yes. But if you're just hiring me with a computer science degree, you're still going to be challenged. I'm challenged every day with trying to keep my clients' information secure. I've managed to do it now 30 years, but it is a challenge. It really is. You've got to stay on top of it. To update machines once a year or once every 2 years or 5 years, that's not going to be good enough. So anyway, thanks for your time, and we do appreciate your work. We know that people are dedicated, and thanks for your time.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. I appreciate all the witnesses that are here today to speak. I've got one more green card in support, not wishing to speak, Kathy Costanza. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we receive email testimony as well. And so I'm just going to mention these real quick. James and Brenda O'Brock from Shreveport emailed related to voter integrity and requesting that paper ballot, security cameras, and trusted election workers be instituted before the next cycle. Claudia Oliver is in favor of the bill. Lisa Groundsel is just requesting no to internet machines. Walter Groundsel, no to internet machines. David Oliver, no to internet connected machines. Susan Greenlaw is for paper ballots only. Lisa Chilvers, no to internet, and Diane Steen, also no to internet. These emails will be entered into record, and so we appreciate everybody's testimony. I would ask that Chairwoman Hewitt and Secretary of State take the table just for closing comments, please. Mr. Secretary, you go first.
Mr. Vice Chairman and members, Madam Chairwoman and author, a lot of good information put forth to you all. I will say this, I encourage all of the folks behind me to get involved further into the process and encourage them to, those that aren't, to become commissioners, to be part of the process of bringing the elections to the people of Louisiana. I think that would be an additional help to all of us to be part of that process. What we propose, I think, Madam Chairwoman, is that this is a working document, and we're going to move forward and look at all the possibilities. And I don't think that the intent was ever to not allow for paper to be considered as part of the process. It was all the multiple possibilities, and I think the chairwoman said it herself in her opening comments, is that it could be anywhere from direct record electronic voting machines to pencil and paper. I will say that we do have optical scanners already in the process that we use for our absentee ballots. So we take a picture of the ballots when they're scanned, that's stored, and then the paper is also stored if it's needed through our retention records process. And we're working with Senator Cloud on her legislation as well to beef up our election integrity in Louisiana. I will tell you that I believe that we already are in the top notch in the entire United States as to how we perform our elections, and we can even get better, and we should be the example. This is the opportunity. This piece of legislation and the framework that Senator Hewitt has put together is the actual process by which we collect information, collect data, and we get the input from the public, and we provide what we can and hold hearings all across the state in order to get that perspective. I totally respect those folks who have driven a long ways. Some who drove in this morning and then had to leave because I noticed some faces that were gone. I mean, I'm excited. This is our opportunity to lead the way for the entire country even more. So, if you will, integrity with steroids. And I'm looking forward to this process. You know, I think that everybody has some form of ability to provide us additional information. And I will tell you, it was stated here that I've not been able to get to all of the information. I have not been able to see every single video that's been put on YouTube or wherever in order to, that's saying something about what happened in the last election cycle. No, that's true. I've not, but I certainly have had folks send them to me, and we're trying to get through them as much as we can to learn more, to learn what folks are saying and what they're seeing and what they believe may have happened in other states that did not happen in Louisiana. And I understand the concern of additional technology and newer technology, which is the whole reason for this very framework, so that we can have an open and transparent process by which we do it. I don't like the archaic way that we have to procure new voting machines. But I was locked into a system that's antiquated. So this now provides us the opportunity to open it up, get a lot more citizen input, and really delve deep into what's the best process for Louisiana to move forward. And if we want to be a leader, here's one of the challenges we're going to have. There may be only one. I've heard the rumor of one company. But as of January, when the new standards came out, and by the way, I think it was 2015 for the previous standards. So it took from 2015 to 2021 to get a new set of standards through the EAC. My understanding is there may be one company who might be able to provide equipment or a system to be certified to EAC. But in January, when the new standards come out, they were zero. So if we go now and we look at the timeline that we're looking at now, and we're going to have discussions on that, it may not be December. Because there may not be enough companies with meeting the new standards that we want to live with. So all those things we have to look at. But my bottom line is this. We're all working at it together. And today I thought was a very, very constructive process. And for those who have said that they have researched things and they have brought in experts, or they want to bring in experts and they've talked to experts, do you realize a lot of you have all participated in hearings or on conference calls with these so-called experts? Do you realize not one of them have called my office? And anyone who's organized those calls never called my office and to invite me to participate in it? I'm open. We are open. But we want to be part of the process too. We're the agency that's responsible for this. So I look forward to working with everyone in this process. And we're going to make certain that it is a process that we can all be proud of. And as Senator Hewitt and I and others and more public input, you're going to see this legislation, I think, improve over time. And I've already gotten calls, and I have a meeting on Friday with Representative Hodges on her legislation to discuss that and to see how all of this is going to fit together. But I certainly agree that you all as legislators, and we working with you all, are moving in the right direction and providing a real strong election integrity package of legislation that's going to strengthen our election laws for this great state. And that's what I am committed to. That's what I've always been committed to, and we will continue down that path. So I appreciate the opportunity to work with you all and to continue this process. Chairwoman?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thanks to everybody. I'm looking up at the screen as if I could see all of you sitting behind me, but thank you all for coming. I know many of you traveled again from across the state to be here today, and we accomplished a lot today. We did accomplish exactly what I hoped that we would. You all have been chomping at the bit to be able to testify in front of a legislative committee and share some of your thoughts. And the message is loud and clear. You don't want to be connected to the internet, and you want paper ballots, and we understand that. And I want to say too that, you know, we as legislators, we are just as passionate about protecting the right to vote as you all are. And I've had many conversations with legislators. We are all getting lots of feedback from our constituents. We have been on conference calls with experts. I have seen all the videos. So it's not our role to raise our hands when you all are asking, you know, who saw all these different videos. I've been on calls with these members, and I know that they've seen the videos, and we've met with a lot of these experts. And so don't misinterpret, you know, the blank faces here for not being passionate and sharing your commitment to protecting our right to vote. It is fundamental. It is what makes our country great. It is the single biggest differentiator between our country and all the other countries. And so we know that this is the single biggest issue across the country is election integrity. And yes, we do have a number of bills dealing with that in this legislative session, and I'm supporting them and working on them. I'm authoring them. We're working together as a legislative group. And this bill does establish the framework to move us forward on voting systems, and I've worked very closely with the Secretary of State over the last few weeks on this bill and working to make it better. And he's offered a number of great suggestions that we've included, others that we have already discussed for the next amendments and the next revisions. Many of you in the audience have talked about today, wanting to have more direct representation on the commission. I'm certainly open to that. I would point out to you the challenge that Senator Foyle has raised is, how do you choose those citizens and who would make those choices? Now, the bill currently does provide there are 3 citizens out of 10 that are on the commission as it stands today. One is a gubernatorial appointment, one is a cybersecurity expert, and one is a member from the disabled community. There are 5 elected officials, the Secretary of State and 4 legislators, and 2 state employees, being the Commissioner of Elections and the Commissioner of Administration, or his appointee. We see a need for representation from the Registrar of Voters and the Clerk of Courts. These are folks that are close to the election process. They're dealing with the machines. They're dealing with the updates. They're dealing with the process. And I say machines in just sort of I say that broadly. When I'm talking about machines, I'm saying that paper ballots is part of that conversation. So when we talk about voting systems, paper ballots are certainly part of that. But you do have to have equipment, in my opinion, to be able to either read the ballots, tally the ballots. I mean, there's still something to accumulate them unless you plan on being there for a very long time and having a lot of folks manually counting the ballots one at a time. And so the balance for us is going to be wanting to have accurate results, right, that are safe and secure, and we all want that. And we also want timely results. We are a group that believes in instant numbers. How many of you have checked your phone or your computer at 8:05 looking for early results of the elections? And so we want results to be timely. And we know that if you were to take weeks to report the results of an election, then we would be creating doubt within the community as to, well, what's happening? Who's messing with the vote count over these last 2 weeks while you're counting ballots? And so that's the balance, is trying to figure out the best way to do it so that it's safe and secure and we can provide results as quickly as possible for the community. I know there was some talk about wanting to have paper ballots like wired into the legislation. And, fundamentally, I agree with you about wanting paper ballots, but I will say that my thought process in not including that is twofold. One is it is the responsibility of the commission to have a lot of the conversation that we had today, in addition to bringing in these experts that aren't going to want to sit on the commission. They're going to want to make a trip in and testify for 2 hours as to what they've learned and what they know. Right? These are not folks that are going to want to be part of a 4-month commission in some cases. And so the idea of not having the paper ballots wired in is the same reason why we have problems right now with the fact that DREs are in our statute. 20 years from now, we may not be talking about paper ballots. There might be some other way that we want to have elections. And so by putting that in the statute today, you're creating the exact same problem that we're trying to fix. By leaving it with the commission to decide at the time it's convened, at the time we need ballots, gives you the ability to have this rich dialogue, to bring in the experts, and to make a determination as to what's the best path forward. And I guess I would like to say, in closing, I feel really good about where we are. I think that we're on a good path. I think this does establish a good framework, and I look forward to continuing to work with the citizens. And I'm very appreciative of your passion. I mean, nothing would be more discouraging, right, than to be talking about something as fundamental as your right to vote, and citizens are not interested or don't care. We are blessed to have a group of citizens that do care, and I know that you're representing, you know, hundreds and hundreds of other folks back home who are just as passionate about this issue as you are. And so, you know, we hear you. We want you to continue to be involved. And again, you know, whether you're sitting exactly on a commission or whether you have the opportunities to testify, your public input and your opportunity to be heard is still equally as strong. And so, you know, I think that we've accomplished much in this bill. I appreciate all of the input, and we'll continue to make this bill better as it moves through the process. And so, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time of this committee. You know, it's been a couple hours now that we've been talking about it, and I think we've had a lot of great input and dialogue. So I would ask, Mr. Chairman, that you all move this bill favorable as amended, or move this bill as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. What's the will of the Senator Foyle? Moves the bill, Senate Bill 221 as amended, favorable. Anyone opposed? No. We'll move 221 favorable as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we've got members. We have one or two more bills from Senator Cloud we're going to hear before we adjourn.